Yeah, but it's the threes that he makes that make the coaches think he runs on anti-turf.
He's the reigning two-time defensive player of the year.
But his dunks, though?
He's everywhere on the court.
But his dunks, though.
Lockdown.
True shooting percentage.
Gentlemen. Consider a hypothetical question. Could Kawhi get buckets on Kawhi?
All right, everybody. Welcome to an emergency pod. Woke up this morning with huge trade news, the Kawhi Leonard trade. I got Nishant on the line with me to discuss it all. Dude, what do you think about this trade?
Pretty wild, man. I mean, talk about dark horse, right? No one thought the Raptors were in this race, and some news has been emerging, the last couple of weeks. And on the low post, Windhurst was saying how everyone else had kind of fallen out of the running, and this is all that was left. But it wasn't exactly the trade that I expected.
Yeah, I think my first inclination, and I think I actually sent you this on Instagram, and these are things that, is just all pure speculation when you look for these things. I sent you DeMar DeRozan's Instagram page, and it was weird because he had deleted all of his posts all of a sudden on Instagram, and anything associating with the Raptors, like everything. He just got rid of everything, and it was so random. And that was the same day on Vegas, they released these odds, and the Raptors all of a sudden, remember I sent you that? It was like the Raptors were even they became the all odds-on favorites to acquire Kawhi. And it turns out that they've been talking, the Spurs and Raptors have been talking for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I think, it's a bit sad for DeMar's part, and I'm pretty surprised at what the Raptors have become this year. I mean, you were talking about the best team in the East, at least in the regular season. They fired the coach of the year. They get rid of their franchise player. I mean, talk about how the NBA only cares about championships anymore. I feel like historically, I mean, if you were the top team in either conference and you had the coach of the year, and you'd be worshiping your star player, your franchise player, not trying to ship them off to a different country, I guess.
The Raptors, I think it's one of after that sweep. The way the Cavs swept them in 4 games because they thought this was their year, number 1 seed, and this was their time. And I think that sweep really it carried more effects than what we initially saw because, I mean, like you mentioned, Casey got fired, and there's really already rumblings that DeMar may be traded. And but I think this is something you and me were talking about, so maybe we defer on this. That contract, I think the Raptors realized that money that they're paying DeMar DeRozan is like a max level. He was a max level player, but I think they realized they just can't continue to pay DeMar DeRozan that much money, and they're already capped out because with Lowry and Ibaka. So there's really no moves that they could make except with a trade like this.
We talk about max level players all the time, and there's a lot of speculation about who the top 10, 15 players are who should be probably getting some of these max contracts. And I mean, I feel like DeMar DeRozan is in the top 15, maybe top 20 players. You're talking about a guy who's been an all-star for a couple of years now, a guy who's been the face of the franchise, and it's not the classical superstar who gets his money and keeps playing the way he plays. I mean, last offseason, he totally changed around what his play was like. He went from a guy who shot mostly mid-range jumpers to a guy who stretched his game out to the three-point line. You can't fault him for who he is, but he did try to make his game better. Obviously, they came up against the juggernaut that is LeBron James in the offseason, and he was clearly the Achilles heel of that team. And it's kind of sad that they didn't want to run it back one more time when LeBron James has finally left the Eastern Conference and left it wide open for them.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. I was like, wow, the fact that LeBron's gone now, I thought maybe this is their time to run it back and see what they could do now that LeBron's not there. But maybe they thought Boston's bring Kyrie and Hayward's back. They're going to get stronger. Philly, another year of Simmons and Embiid, they're probably going to be stronger. Maybe they thought the same team is just not going to get it done. But then again, so the Toronto GM, right, Masai Ujiri, he's a very smart guy. I mean, you kind of have firsthand experience with the way he fleeced you guys in the Melo trade. I mean, we'd have to get into winners and losers, but I really like what Toronto did here. So they got rid of DeRozan. I mean, not rid of. I think that's someone they needed to give up. It had to be Lowry or DeRozan, and they chose to trade DeRozan, probably because he has 3 years left on his deal, whereas Lowry has 2. So I think the contracts will be done sooner. And then I really thought they would have to give up one of OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, or Fred VanVleet, like one of these young guys, or even DeLon Wright. But turns out the young guy that they had to give up was Jakob Poeltl, who's, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I thought Anunoby, Siakam, they were all definitely rated higher. And then on top of that, I think this is something people aren't really talking about, is that the pick that they gave up, the 2019 first round pick, it's top 20 protected. So say like some weird stuff happens, like Kawhi comes in and he's like, oh, I don't really want to play, or he sits out, which I don't think he will do, but if he claims some sort of injury or something, and then Kyle Lowry maybe is like upset now because they traded his best friend away, and then the whole Raptors, they just collapse, and say they don't end up making the playoffs, or they're like the 8 seed, 7 seed, they're protected now because they get to keep that pick if it falls within a top 20. It's a lottery pick, or even if they're a low playoff seed, they're going to keep that pick. And if it doesn't convey this year, then it turns into 2 second-round picks. So they may not end up even having to give up a first-round pick in this deal, which I thought was like amazing.
Well, this might be the greatest salary dump that we've ever seen for a team that's trying to maybe blow it up and reboot. Because, I mean, if all they had to give up was Poeltl and such a stacked, protected pick, my question is there some talkings between Kawhi's side and the Raptors where this is really just a 1-year rental? And I know, the sadness that you go through talking about 1-year rentals in terms of Paul George, and the fact that, Oklahoma City took a chance on him and he decided to stay, and can, Toronto do the same thing with Kawhi? But Kawhi has made it pretty clear where he wants to be. And I know that PG had done the same thing. He'd said LA, and we might be drumming up the same thing. But the difference is, I feel like Paul George made that decision on his own, and I feel like Kawhi's decision-making has been kind of interspersed with not only his own decision-making, but his uncle's decision-making. So I'm kind of worried. Maybe this is just a year for Kawhi to come out, ball out. Maybe the Raptors do well, maybe they don't. Maybe there's some inner turmoil for this team that had so much turnover after being in such harmony all year. And then Kawhi just gets to go where he wants to go at the end of the season.
I mean, I think it's a good point. People are trying to draw parallels. Oh, Toronto's the OKC of this year, and trying to take a gamble on a player that they don't know will stay. But there's a couple things that are different, right? One, Toronto's not even in America. Like, it's like in a totally different country. Like, Kawhi wanted to go to LA, and like Toronto's like, they sent him away as far as possible. Like, they sent him to another country.
Warm weather to cold weather.
Exactly. At least San Antonio's warm. Like, they sent him to Toronto where it's cold. Like, the winters are really cold there. It's a different country. So I think that's one thing that will definitely, like, I don't think he's going to want to re-sign there. And the second is, like, at least in OKC, you had a superstar in Russ that could convince Paul to stay and be like, okay, I want to play with this guy. Maybe with Russ I can do something. They don't. Toronto doesn't have that. Like, you can't argue that Kyle Lowry's on the same level as Russell Westbrook. Like, Toronto doesn't have that superstar. I purely think this is just a way for them to, like you said, get rid of DeRozan's contract, and then if Kawhi does leave, then basically I think Lowry's contract, Ibaka's contract, they're all going to be expiring contracts next summer. So if Kawhi does leave, they could very easily start a rebuild, and they just would have expiring contracts to give up, and who knows? And you know what else they could do at the trade deadline? They could call up Magic Johnson and Jerry West and be like, hey, we don't think we can keep up Kawhi, but he's available. Like, and one of you guys can, if you want him, like, he's available, and start a bidding war between the Lakers and Clippers.
That's possible, but the question becomes then all the leverage is gone, right? Like, all the leverage for the Raptors is gone now. Like, what are they really, really, really going to be able to get back from either the Clippers or the Lakers?
It would just be a pick they would be targeting at that point if they know they're going to rebuild. And maybe from the Lakers, they try to get Ingram or Kuzma if they can't, because they won't be able to get both. And maybe from the Clippers, like, try to get Tobias Harris or one of the picks that they just drafted, like one of the guards, Gilgeous-Alexander or Jerome Robinson, something like that.
I'm pretty excited kind of to see what happens at this USA camp, because now we know for a fact that media availability is second to none when it comes to USA camp. Like, media is everywhere, and Kawhi's kind of been in the shadows for so long, but he can't do that if he truly ends up participating. And we can actually ask him there's gonna be people who can ask him questions about, like, how satisfied is he with the trade, and he's gonna deflect. He's gonna be like, I'm very happy with where I'm going to be. I'm gonna work very hard for the Raptors, whatever.
Or can you imagine if he says like, I really don't want to be here in Toronto?
I think that'd be crazy.
Like just if he openly just came out and said like, I don't want to be here.
This guy's causing so much drama around the NBA. It's what keeps us excited, but it's also what makes this NBA season a soap opera, right? Like every turn there's something new happening, and I think it's pretty clear that you think that the Raptors won this deal. And I think the Raptors also did kind of benefit from this deal, but I'm excited to see what DeMar can do in a different kind of system. I mean, he's going to be surrounded with Pop and RC, who can hopefully put together another great team. And people keep forgetting. I mean, I was looking on Twitter, on Instagram, and they were saying how DeMar is the lone star, but they forget that LaMarcus Aldridge had a fantastic season last year, and the two of them kind of occupy the same space in that mid-range game. But maybe if there's one coach that's going to be able to change the NBA and move and try to force against the three-point and layup kind of offense right now, it would be Pop. Maybe he would be able to figure something out to maximize mid-range game with these two amazing mid-range players.
If there's any guy who could do it, like you said, it'd be Pop. But I saw those same jokes, like how like the Spurs are going to attempt a record number of mid-range shots next year with the Aldridge and DeRozan. Aldridge was number 1 in the league last year in mid-range attempts, and DeRozan was number 3. So, but I think this is also a play for Pop because there's a lot of rumors, rumblings that he's going to coach the 2020 Olympic team. And after that, like that may be it for him. Like after 2020 in Tokyo, that could be it for him in terms of his like coaching career with the Spurs, international, everything. So if you have 2 years left, I think that's why they went after a guy like DeRozan instead of more picks. Because if Pop only has 2 years left, they just got like the best player the current best player is DeMar DeRozan. Like all these other guys from other teams, Ingram from the Lakers or Jaylen Brown from the Celtics, or the young guys on the Sixers, if it's Markelle Fultz, they're not. No one's good as DeRozan yet. They think they could be as good as DeRozan eventually, or even better, but no one is at that level yet. So this is
Pop's way of staying relevant through the rest of his career, which is, the talk about competitive edge in him, just not wanting to go down. Doesn't want the Spurs to become relegated as like the tanking team, the rebuilding team. I mean, since the Tim Duncan era, especially not in his last 2 years. I don't think they wanted to go into that rebuild. Maybe after he retires, because I think DeMar's contract is also up in 2020, and same with Aldridge. So maybe then that's when the Spurs enter the full rebuild. But I think they wanted to like ride this out as much as they can. But yeah, an interesting point, like you were talking, I just remember with the Team USA camp, is that can you imagine like Pop is the coach and Kawhi and DeMar DeRozan are both invitees to the camp, and if they're both there, that's just going to be so much fun if they're all there next week. Super exciting. Now, my question is, what does this do for the psyche of all like NBA players? The fact that a team that was so great and just like quickly chipping it apart, and the fact that DeMar said a couple of weeks ago that the Raptors said he was untouchable, and now he's probably looking for a house in San Antonio.
Yeah, I think this is what we were already seeing, right? The amount of player mobility that's happening every year. I mean, just another incredible number that I saw. In the 2016 All-Star game, from that time till now, 16 All-Stars from that game are on different teams. Like, can you believe that? Like, just 2 years ago, from that All-Star game, 16 players, 16 All-Stars in 2 years have changed.
That's like 75% of that.
Yeah, can you just if you just quickly think about it, like from the East, like Paul George, LeBron, like all the different teams, Butler. KD from the West, different team, but Jimmy Butler, exactly, like Al Horford, who was an All-Star, like there's just before the player mobility was mostly role players, but now you have like the best players in the game, like changing teams very frequently, and I think that's what keeps the NBA like viewership and audience like throughout the year.
Okay, so tell me what impact do you think this trade has on the Raptors? Does it make them better? Does it make them worse next year at least?
I think so. If Kawhi comes in committed and just says, all right, it's my 1 year here and I'll play out my 1 year, go as hard as I can this 1 year, and eventually, now he doesn't have to force his way out because in a year he's a free agent. So if he just commits to the team for that 1 year, play as hard as he can, I think the Raptors can make some noise now that LeBron's not there. And, the Celtics, this is going to be a different playoff run for them because with Irving and Hayward, it's theoretically on paper it's a better team, but the chemistry issues, we don't know how it's going to be. Same with the Sixers. Like, they're a younger team. They lost guys like Bellinelli and Ilyasova. And a small note, I don't know if you saw, like, that one guy that they got, Bielitsa, I think is how I say his last name. He decided to stay in Europe. They thought he was going to be a replacement for Ilyasova. So, I mean, a starting lineup of Lowry and Anibui, Kawhi, Ibaka, and Valanciunas can make some noise. And we forgot, the Raptors, this one keeps getting bad. I mean, I think keeps getting for them. They also got Danny Green, like a guy who's won championships and made like important clutch threes in those finals games. I was like, wow, and he's an expiring contract also, which I thought was great for the Raptors.
Which is probably why they wanted to get him.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see if everyone stays committed and this whole situation just doesn't blow up. Like if Kawhi, like we don't know what's gonna happen with Kawhi, how he's gonna react. But just on paper, I mean, the Raptors at least are a top 3 seed with the Sixers and Celtics. They're right there.
And what about for the Spurs? What do you think this does for them for next year?
So, I mean, I think what were they last year? They were a 7 seed, right? So, and that was without Kawhi. And now you added DeMar DeRozan. So, and it's a pop coach team. I definitely think they'll be like a fifth, 6th seed, I think. They'll still be there. They'll be competitive. It's just that they just don't have that same ceiling now that if you had Kawhi. That's not there anymore. They're definitely not a championship team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the difference between Kawhi and DeMar that people do overlook is that DeMar has had more sustained success. Obviously Kawhi's had more success, but I feel like DeMar's had more sustained success over the last last so many years. DeMar's at least been relevant, and Kawhi's was it 2015 or 2015? Was it that the 2014 finals, which the finals where he was the LeBron stopper?
Oh yeah, in 2014, that was when he's Finals MVP.
And then he had his kind of breakout season 2015, 2016. So he's really only had 2 years of really sustained success if you take out last season, and now in an offense that was almost centered around him. So now it's going to be a little bit different because, they have a new coach in Toronto. They have similar personnel, but now you're running everything hopefully through Kawhi. So how does everyone else adjust, especially Kyle Lowry, who's kind of, not only does he lose his best friend, but he also probably loses a little bit of the reins on the offense.
It's going to be fun. I still think that knowing Masai, I feel like this is not it. I feel this is just part of another bigger plan with the way he protected that pick and got Danny Green back, an expiring deal. And I think just the track record of stars in Toronto, they American-born stars, whether it was Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, they usually don't end up staying in Toronto because just for different reasons. It's culturally different. Even though people say it's a great city, maybe it's a great city to visit. I know a lot of NBA stars, when they go to Toronto, they love it, but it's maybe not the greatest city to live in throughout the year. So I feel like Masai knows that, Kawhi's not someone he's going to probably keep. And this is just part of a plan for him to kind of flip him into something else at the trade deadline. Or I feel like he definitely has a plan up his sleeve. I don't know what it is, but I feel like this is not the last move with Kawhi.
Right. All right, and really quickly, I want to talk about one more thing, which is Sixers trying to poach, what's his name? Daryl Morey from the Rockets.
I saw that. And the crazy part is Daryl Morey was Sam Hinkie's basically mentor.
So do you think Hinkie back to the Sixers at some point?
I just feel like the PR hit that they would take if they brought Hinkie back would just be too much.
But then they could say trusted the process. They had to get rid of Hinkie so that he could come back and return as a phoenix rising from the ashes, man.
If you think about it, Hinkie was the reason that they have Embiid and Simmons, the 2 cornerstones right now. And he even acquired that Sacramento unprotected pick in 2019. His top 1 protected. Hinkie acquired that. Colangelo then traded that to Boston in the Jason Tatum trade. But that was one of the best assets if you think about it now, this Sacramento pick in 2019. Unless it falls number 1, which it could, but you never know, then it's gonna be a top 5 pick that the Celtics could potentially have next year, which is, as a Lakers fan, I just hate seeing that the Celtics are gonna have that pick.
I'm really hoping for some Celtics chemistry issues, because the biggest thing is all these guys that had such an expanded role last year, like Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're gonna lose some minutes. There's just not enough minutes on the floor if they want to have Hayward and Irving play meaningful minutes.
you're gonna take away minutes from like Brown and Tatum. That everyone just thinks, oh, basically Kyrie will take over Rozier's minutes, and then Hayward takes over Marcus Morris's minutes, and then you fill out the lineup with Horford, Brown, and Tatum. But it's like, that's not exactly how, like, these lineups just don't work like that. It's not like NBA 2K where you just sub one guy for another. Like, these are real players, and there's going to be chemistry issues.
Well, the good thing is, even though the Eastern Conference is not going to win the championship next year, at least all these teams have something buzzing around them. You know, at least the top half of the teams. You know, with the Raptors, with the whole Kawhi saga, the Boston Celtics about making it kind of fit together. The Sixers with, you know, getting their front office put together / can Embiid and Simmons stay healthy. The Bucks with now getting Bud and all of the finally having a coach, so they can't just keep blaming coaching for their misery. The Pacers were they actually real last year, or was it just a fluke? I mean, at least those 5 teams. The Wizards, like what the hell is happening with the Wizards? So at least those 6 teams will be somewhat exciting.
Yeah, I think for a change, at least for now, like a superstar went from the West to the East, like so. A little bit of maybe a change in the back, maybe not too much, but at least, you know, it's like added another superstar who came into the West.
I feel bad for DeRozan because now making the All-Star game for him will be a lot harder.
And he's back in the same conference as LeBron.
Dude can't get rid of him.
He finally thought LeBron's gone from my conference, and now he's back in the same conference as LeBron.
The ironic thing is, you know how they always used to portray the Spurs as like the whites from Game of Thrones? And now Kawhi Leonard is finally moving to the north where it's really, really, really cold. So maybe they'll continue that for him next year.
Oh man, can't wait to see this drama play out with
man.
Kawhi. I feel like at least the offseason, I mean, this was kind of like the last domino we're waiting for this offseason, unless obviously, you never know these days, like the next superstar that secretly was not happy with this team this whole time and has a trade demand. That could always happen, but I feel like this was one of the final domino to fall for the offseason.
Poor reporters, they're probably, like all the reporters, they're probably on like their vacations right now because this is the only time of the year they get off after summer league before like camp starts. They're gonna have to be reporting on stuff like this. Even
this trade, like I woke up today morning and I see like all these reporters that were bringing up these trade news way early, like in the middle of the night. It was like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Eastern time. And these reporters were like bringing up the news. It was probably because I think I saw this on picture about how Masai Ujiri was in Africa with President Obama, and there was some NBA mission, and they opened up a school or something there. So Masai was probably in Africa, and they're way ahead in time zone. So it was probably at a normal time.
And he probably wanted to be swinging at least arms swinging distance away from DeMar DeRozan, so that he can't backlash against him.
That's just cool, yeah. I can't believe he told him like he won't trade him, and then next week just trades him. At least like give the dude a heads up and be like, hey, yeah, we're looking at trades. We may have to trade you. At least tell him, be honest.
No one's loyal in this NBA, man. That's what keeps it fun. All right, man. Yeah, till the next superstar gets traded. All right, peace out.
All right, see you, man.